Hi everyone, these are my directions for making boxes out of cards. So my family started making these out of Christmas cards, but you can absolutely use any kind of card. So these are the supplies you're going to need to make a box out of a card. You are going to need a pencil, a ruler, a scissors, and a card. Again, a card of any kind. The card should have a front and a back still attached. Absolutely have writing on the inside because that's going to be covered. So this is a great way to recycle, reuse some old cards that you or your family may have received. The only caveat is try not to have a card that has, if you can see, like this card in particular is kind of 3D layered. It's got a ribbon on it, and then there's 3-4 layers to the front. That will not fold very well. So just so long as it's a traditional flat card. If your card has some like bumpy cutouts out of the top or something like that where it's a wavy design, we might be able to use those if it can be turned into a square, but the multi-layering is not going to work out for us. So just a traditional card, and it doesn't matter if it's a card that would be oriented horizontally or vertically in that portrait or landscape wording that we use. Either one will be absolutely fine. So once you've picked out your card, I'm picking out this one for my demonstration today. The first thing that you need to do is open up the card, and you're going to cut right down the fold. I already did that to start off this video. So cut right down the fold and separate the front from the back. Again, it's going to have wording on that, not a big deal. And I'm going to do the inner part of the box, or the outside of the box first. So the writing part of the card makes the inside of the box, and the pretty part of the card makes the top of the box. Okay, so take the writing part of the box of the card and put it off to the side. We'll take care of that later. We're going to start with the pretty side of the card, so to speak. And again, it doesn't matter the orientation of the card. What we're going to do is square it off. So obviously this is taller than it is longer. And I'm going to have to think about if I'm going to cut off some of it to make it be a square, I'm going to keep this part of the box. Or if I were to cut off the bottom and keep this part of the square, I'm kind of keeping the N and the K in thankful. I'm showing you this because a card of this size only ends up making a box about that big. So you can kind of see that would be my square in the middle around the N and K, or that would be my square in the middle, these leaves, and everything else kind of gets folded into the inside that you don't really see. So I am going to keep this bottom half of my card. So my trick to doing this is I always say to my students, pretty side down, and the part that you want to keep towards you. And we're going to measure to square this off. When I measure my card, I can see that it is 4, and it's really hard at this angle to see, 4 5/8. So at 4 5/8 across, I'm going to measure 4 5/8 up. So at 4 5/8 up, I'm going to put a line on my card so that I can see how tall I need to make it be to be a perfect square, 4 5/8 by 4 5/8. And to ensure that I get a nice straight line, I'm going to do the same thing on this side of my card, 4 5/8 up. Got 2 little hash marks, and I'm going to connect those. Oops, I obviously measured wrong at this weird angle. I'm going to double check my measurements because it is not a perfect square. There we go, I messed up on the left side, so I want this mark instead. 4 5/8 by 4 5/8. And now I will see that if I were to draw that line straight across at those 2 hash marks, I have now turned my rectangular card into a square. Okay, you might want to double check those measurements like me. I noticed mine was going uphill a little bit, not the awkward angle of the camera. I didn't notice it until I started to make that line. 4 5/8 by 4 5/8. What I'm going to do is cut that out, and then give a little shortcut for the other part of the card. Okay, so I've got my perfect square on my pretty side, and then the inside of the box, it has to, tuck in. The decorated part of the box has to be able to fit on top of, and the inside of the box has to fit inside of it. So the writing part of the box has to be a little bit smaller. So it's supposed to be about 1/4 inch smaller, and my trick to doing that quickly is that I line the cards back up, and then I move the pretty side down a little bit, and over a little bit. And you're going to notice that it makes this little notch by going both down and over. I want about a 1/4 inch notch to be down and over. Okay, and so rather than having to take the time to remeasure a square, make sure that that notch looks good, and I can draw those lines in. And once again, I've got another square. I'm gonna take that square now. Again, it's gonna have this little extra little flappy part over here, and cut that out. Okay, so now I can see if I line everything back up, I'll put the writing part on top. If I put that back on top of my card, I can see that the writing part is just a little bit shorter and a little bit skinnier, okay? So that's your first step to have everything cut out. Again, I'm gonna put the writing side off to the side, and I'm going to take the decorated part of the card and flip it back over. I'm gonna use my ruler. It's really important to have nice straight lines. I'm gonna use my ruler to draw in diagonals. Okay, so vertex to vertex, using our math words, draw in my diagonals. And then I'm going to take each vertex and fold it into the center. And I like to use my ruler to scrape down those edges to make sure they're nice, crisp folds. And then you repeat on all 4 sides. All 4 vertices into the center. I scrape my creases, open and repeat. Once you've done that to all 4 sides, you know, kind of looks like you've got a little table or something going on here with your card box, but you're gonna open it all the way back up. And now this step is really hard to visualize, so pay close attention. You're gonna take one of those vertices back into the center. And what I like to do is use my thumbs along the edge that I folded, and I use my pointer fingers to hold down the triangle, and I kind of curl it around so that I keep the peak of the triangle right there at the center, and I curl it around to make sure that the flat edge gets lined up with that center diagonal line that we made. So again, I'm pointer finger keeping the triangle in, curling up, and going into the center line. Okay, again, I want a nice tight fold, so I'm going to use my ruler to make a nice sharp crease here. And once again, once I've done one of them, I open it up and I'll do the exact same thing on all 4 sides. Vertex into the center, pointer fingers on the triangle to keep it in place, keep that tucked in, and then roll on over so the flat side gets lined up with the center line. Repeat that for all 4 sides. So I've done that to all 4 sides, and what I can see here is kind of like a grid paper, except in the center I have a nice bigger square and then surrounded by a whole bunch of littler squares. That big square is what is the top of our box, and these little squares will help make up our sides, okay? Now this step I'm going to show with a highlighter just to make sure you can see what we're doing, because if you cut wrong, then there is no fixing the cuts. But a great way to see this is holding the card in like what's, you know, the diamond configuration, or the more of a rhombus configuration. So you're going to look at the big lines that you made, and if you go to the right and the left, you can see that there are creases that come up 2 grid lines worth. So it goes from the edge up to that center square we just talked about, okay? So those two lines, and I'm only doing an opposite pair. So I'm going to do that same thing here, to the right and to the left of the original lines that I made. I go in 1, 2 grid lines worth, 1, 2 grid lines worth to come to that center square. Now you're only doing this on one set of opposite sides, not all four, not all four directions, just these two and these two. And we're gonna cut those out. If you were to cut on all of the places, then you would, it would fall apart. We would lose some of our shape. So make sure your lines kind of match my lines. And we're going to cut on those creases up to that center box area. Okay, so not all the way, just where you drew your lines. Okay. Now that I made those cuts, folding. Okay, so I like to hold it so that my lines are going right to left. And I kind of call them like the fatter ones, or I'm sorry, the skinnier ones and then the fatter ones. So that the bigger ones into the center. And then I take these little triangle tabs and kind of fold them in. Okay. And then we go up. Now this is the hard part for a lot of people to see when I'm doing this in class. These come in to make a square. And these come in to make a square. And those little triangle thingies trying to, get in the way there, but I can hold it with 2 fingers and see that it's now a square by bringing these in to be a square. And then I kind of rotate to help hold it. I go straight up, over, and in. And then straight up, over, and in. Smush it down into a box. And if you do this pretty well, you're not going to need any tape to hold that in place. Okay? There's my box, my nice little leaf design that I picked out. Notice how much of it has disappeared. It's just that one little leaf in the center. And now all I have to do is the exact same thing to the part of the card that would have writing on it. We've already cut it to size. And so I'm just going to go through the steps one more time. I'm going to draw in my diagonals. I will fold each of my vertices into that center using my using my ruler to really scrape it down. And I open it between each one. Nice tight folds. Okay, so I've done that to all 4. Kind of looks like a table. We talked about that. And then I bring one of them back to the center, and this is where I do like that double fold. My pointer fingers keep the triangle down. My thumbs help roll that flat edge into the diagonal lines I made at the very beginning. Scrape that down to be a nice tight fold. Open, and repeat that for all 4 edges. Done that for all 4 edges. Just like before, I've got a center box that will be like the inside of that base that we're going to make. I've got the center box, and I need to make some cuts to be able to fold. Remember, you go to the left and to the right of the lines that you drew, 2 grid lines worth up to that portion that is going to be the face of our box. And I don't do it on all 4 sides. I just do these 2 sets of lines on 2 sides. Okay, once you have those correctly made, you can cut. I don't draw these lines in when I'm making them on my own, but it's very helpful for the students to see. I have them show me their lines before they cut to make sure that if we cut too much off, there's no going back, there's no saving it. So to fold this into place, if we remember, we had like the little skinny ones and the bigger fat ones. The bigger fat ones come into the center. The little tiny triangle flaps come in. And then I go up And those little triangle flappy parts come in. And I start to form not a rectangle, but I want it to be a square box by folding those in. Again, that's the step students miss. They miss folding those in. And then up, over, and in, and straight up, over, and in. And then there you go. You've got the inside of the box to put your treasures. You've got the beautiful lid, and you just made yourself a nice little box out of a card. Hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and I hope you have fun carrying on a Lynn family tradition and make some boxes of your own. Thank you.